So first, I'd like to introduce myself and say welcome, welcome. My name is Elizabeth Aloni, and I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest local media company in the New York metro area. We publish over 70 newspapers, magazines, websites, webinars, podcasts, and events throughout Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Westchester, Long Island, and Philadelphia. Today, we're thrilled to bring together experts to be able to talk about pandemic teaching, how to make the best out of a bad situation. You know, experts say that distance learning is here to stay. It's certainly become a mainstay in our schools and our children's educational experience. As schools pivoted quickly to technology for at-home teaching, they've had challenges. But as the months going by, many companies have been able to help, such as custom computer specialists, with innovative ideas to make distance learning doable. In this webinar, our panel of experts will explore the impact distance learning has had on children and how innovations in technology can help them succeed regardless of where learning is taking place. We're going to explore some of the positive features of distance learning, as well as the challenges. And our panelists will give tips on how to help your students navigate this new world of learning. We are honored to welcome our prestigious panelists, and I'd like to introduce each of them to you. First, I'd like to introduce Tom Franson. He is the Vice President of Support Services at Custom Computer Specialists. He has over 20 years experience of developing performance metrics and building performance improvement and quality management programs. He created the Distance Learning IT Help Desk after identifying the need for technical support for students when his daughter began remote learning as a result of the pandemic. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Next up, I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Mr. Eudes Budhai. He is the Superintendent of Schools for the Westbury Union Free School District. Mr. Eudes Budhai is a visionary and innovative leader with a keen sense of forward thinking to shape the lives of children, families, and communities. With nearly 3 decades of experience, he is a leader and advocate for all students. Welcome, Mr. Budhai. Next, I'm thrilled to introduce David Zimbler. He is the principal of Westbury High School and has been an educator for 28 years. He has served as a middle and high school principal for 15 of them. Under his leadership, his schools have been recognized with the United States Department of Education School of Excellence Blue Ribbon School, a New York State Education Department high-performing gap closing school, and by the New York State Education Department for its graduation rate for young men of color. He has received the National Association of Secondary and Elementary School Principals Salute to Leadership. Welcome, David.
Morning.
And finally, I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Dr. Joan Nihal. She is a clinical psychologist and author with over 25 years of practice. Her therapeutic approach is to provide support and practical feedback to help clients effectively address personal life challenges. Her new book, Happy is the New Healthy, talks about all the different ways we can find happiness. It's particularly timely now considering we're all in a global pandemic. Welcome, Dr. Nihal.
Thank you.
So first, I'd like to get started with Mr. Budhai. Mr. Budhai, you know, the pandemic outbreak was so sudden last spring. Had you ever imagined that school could turn to online teaching so quickly?
I hope that everyone can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So first, I would like to thank Schneps Media and our host here, Elizabeth Aloni, for having us all together and having these individuals that I consider to be experts. I don't consider myself as an expert in this field because we are pretty much writing the playbook as we speak. This is not something that anyone really anticipated or could even envision could happen in this year, right? The last time that something like this occurred was back in 1918s. There were just very few people that are still living today to be able to speak to that pandemic and the following one that we're experiencing today. But nevertheless, I mean, we always say that, you know, and I've heard this from some friends that if we don't plan, it becomes an illusion. Mm-hmm. Correct. So immediately after we came into this pandemic, this global pandemic, because it was not something that was just in our area geographically. It was a world pandemic. We had already learned experiences from other countries and what they have done. And we immediately galvanized all of our troops, our teams, our principals, staff, every stakeholder in our district to start planning for what was to come. And I think that collaboration of individuals, of every single part of our organization, which includes our leadership team, our staff, teachers, psychologists, clinicians, to the person that is providing our nutrition, every single stakeholder to be part of this planning process, because it was important for them to activate their voice in this plan and hear themselves and see themselves when we start having these experiences. So I think that moving to this time now is what has allowed us to be successful in really reopening our schools for children and making sure that we provide a safe environment, an environment that is going to transition them to this revolution of transformation of education when it comes to instruction, and using experts like people from customs and others to really support us in this data-driven. I mean, we've always talked about data-driven instruction, but this type of data-driven instruction is a bit different than what we imagine it to be today. So I think that, again, all of the individuals that are part of this, the experts in their own individual fields, having them part of a planning process is what has really catapulted us to a success in 2021 now that we're in, back from March.
It has really been a spectacular transition, and you're right. We certainly were catapulted into technological learning for sure. How has the transition been from the fall into the spring? Have you seen an increase of students staying home due to the current surge?
So we did a thought exchange with our parents and staff and surveys to really give them voice as to what would they like to see in terms of instruction, and that was the way that we then started planning to provide our community and our children with the instructional resources. We understood that there was an adjustment period. There still is an adjustment period when it comes to simultaneous teaching, meaning a hybrid version, students coming into our space, A and B day, alternate days, while others are remoting into class, and having our professional staff actually adjusting their teaching at the same time, understanding how to teach students that are within their class, simultaneously teaching students that are remoting in to the class, so that instruction is on a daily basis. There is no gap of instruction. We wanted to make sure, and this came from our staff, they wanted to make sure that our students were receiving instruction on a daily basis. And there was a asynchronous, synchronous kind of teaching to also do that. So that's live streaming instruction versus independent also instruction. So it has taught us and our children that time management is one of the most critical parts of our lives, right? We all know that we have a problem with some time management as adults. So you could imagine how children have to really understand how to use their time effectively to continue learning. And they're learning every single day at all different times of day. It's no longer the traditional 8 to 3 kind of learning that we've had in schools. This has really extended to a really different kind of phenomenon of teaching. And I think that from the time that we started to this time now, we have made a great adjustment to really understand a bit more about this transition and how it's going to actually move us into the next generation for our children. We're learning a great deal from them at this particular time.
It's really interesting how you mentioned time management, because what an important life skill. And honestly, there's never a class in time management 101. Nobody really learns that. Some people are naturally adept at it. And so, that's a benefit for them. But that truly is, what you brought up. I hadn't even thought about what an important lesson. And that's, some of the beauty of this is that there is some positives that have come out of it. So we'll certainly talk about those. Thank you. David, with your experience as a middle school and a high school principal, can you share with us the challenges that teachers have under this new teaching format? It's got to cause a lot of
Most certainly. First, good morning again, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. I remember leaving school on March 13th last school year, packing up my bag like any other Friday, And next thing we know, we're immediately going to remote learning. And what is the plan of action at that point? Because you have to create a plan of action immediately. The good thing about our district and our superintendent is that we're always working on plans of action. So it's not as if we had to start from scratch. We actually had to complement some of the items that were in place, then think about what is this simultaneous learning going to look like just in one fashion. Children are now home. We have to ensure they have technology, and more importantly, ensure the teachers are ready. So what did we put in place immediately upon 100% remote instruction? A number of teachers were thrusted into this virtual teaching platform. Teachers in the traditional school prior to this pandemic were not online teachers. Most were not trained in this capacity. I would say it took many teachers a couple of months before they felt they were effective teaching in this fashion. First, it was remote, and upon our re-entry back into the district, as our superintendent explained, simultaneous learning, where students are on virtually and in person at the same time. We informed our parents at the start of this school year, and we created a lot of town hall meetings to discuss this, that we're all in this together. We're learning as we go. So as the teachers were getting their professional development, we also allowed parents to have professional development as well. We opened up our school to whatever supports were needed. The parents communicated just how do I navigate through a Google Classroom? How do I use the Chromebook to support instruction during a time such as this? We created conditions to support that. We truly asked for parent voice and teacher voice. To go back to the teachers, literally creating a menu of choices, asking our teachers, what is it you need more of? And then creating teacher upon teacher support, administration teacher support. And we're still learning, even providing teachers with self-reflective technology professional development surveys. Where do you think you are now comparably to the start of the school year? And just continuously having these conversations with the parents as well. We just conducted a virtual meeting last week with, again, a menu of choices for our parents where they could go to breakout rooms and get more of what they need to support their children at home. As we know, during a time such as this, our parents have become educators, and how much we count on them during a time such as this.
That's a very good point. The technological challenges are not just for the teachers, which obviously that exists, but there's also the parents that are at home having to become pseudo teachers and be able to navigate the technology. So speaking of technology, David, how has your school advanced with innovation, and has it pushed you? Is this another positive, like the time management, has it pushed you into the future?
Absolutely. Every student being provided a Chromebook in the school district is the ultimate goal. We have to make sure we have all the technology. Our superintendent, our directors, our administration team are working so hard to ensure our families have what they need to be successful during this time. I truly believe prior to this pandemic, that this was going to be the future of education. We've spoken a lot about that as a team. As we create school programs in the years to come, asynchronous and synchronous instruction may certainly be a part of this. In addition, this is what a number of current careers and jobs in the future will look like. So we're creating these conditions now, which I believe will benefit our youth in the years to come. There is no going back now. We have truly become a nation of technology on all levels based on this current condition. In our school itself, we've created a school-wide help desk with our library media specialist who supports teachers, students, and parents. It's a call-in desk. You can call, email, use Remind. We actually create a student group called the SWAT team, Students of Westbury Advancing in Technology. Students that want to pursue a career in technology have now become a team to help other students, parents, and even our staff. So talking about the jobs of the future, being a member of the SWAT team at Westbury High School actually is a pathway to a future career.
I love that. What a great way to be able to educate children and give them the opportunity to be leaders in a time that's so needed. But I think it's a really good point because, schools also with the technology, schools were kind of behind where our children were. Because honestly, a lot of times I ask my kids, what do I do? And so this has really required schools to not only catch up, but get ahead of the technology curve. Really interesting. Tom, there's, lots of challenges in schools. What led to the implementation of your help desk? A little bit about what that help desk is. I know I could personally use a help desk in my house 24/7. So tell us
Sure.
about it.
It really, I guess, sort of started last January, Elizabeth. An existing client, a school district up in Rhode Island, was beginning their one-to-one initiative where they were deploying Chromebooks for each of their students. And they asked if we could provide a help desk during the homework hours, right? So in the evening when the students were trying to connect and access homework assignments. And we agreed to do that. So we had a couple of months of experience where we could get our feet wet supporting students remote learning, basically from January through March when the pandemic sort of really hit us hard, at which point, pretty much all of the public school systems across the Northeast went remote all at once. And we noticed with our own children, they were struggling to remain connected and stay in the virtual classrooms. So we sort of started asking whether there were broader applications here. And that's when we decided to start staffing and hiring people who could specialize in supporting remote students and their parents and their caregivers, specifically on the technologies that are being used by K-12 school districts today.
Fantastic. What are some of the typical issues that Custom Computer Specialist resolves?
So we support pretty much all of the platforms that are out there today. Google Classroom is probably one of the most common. G Suite. From a virtual classroom perspective, you also see Microsoft Teams, Zoom like this. WebEx is another big one, right? So it's a big part of it is the audio visual aspects of I don't have video for my classroom, or I don't have audio, or vice versa. So our people troubleshoot those issues. We do a lot of Wi-Fi and ISP troubleshooting. I can't get my child connected. We get a lot of virtual classroom permission issues where I can't get into my classroom, right? And typically what would happen in the past, when I say the past, I mean March, April, May, was that the teacher was responsible for sort of resolving those issues. The student was sending emails to their teacher. And what we can do is offload that responsibility and let the teachers focus on instruction, and then we work through the technical issues of getting that child connected and back into the classroom.
I mean, you helped panic. Panic is what happened when students couldn't get into it. It was a whole thing in the whole house, everyone running around to figure it out. So, to be able to create a place where parents can turn to for help, and schools to be able to turn to for help, obviously frees up the teachers to focus on teaching, but also there's a lot of peace in the house that is created for that. And that's an important component. We're talking about how these technology, how you can solve these technology problems, but, also we have to talk about emotionally. How can we help our students, and this is for Dr. Neehall, how can we help our students emotionally dealing with this change and dealing with, this whole new world?
I think the first thing to be aware of is that children have a symbiotic relationship with their parents. It starts from birth. They're attuned. A mother and a child are very attuned to each other. So be aware as parents that whatever emotions you're experiencing, your kid is also going to be mirroring them or experiencing them with you. So what do we do in a situation like that? Mr. Budhai talked about time management. David talked about change. I think Darwin talked in Survival of the Species that the species that is most responsive to change will survive. So what do we do? In my field, I think what's very important in my home and also with parents, I teach parents that it's important to have structure, have routine, have a schedule in place. For heaven's sakes, make sure that your kids get up, brush their teeth, have breakfast, go to school, because school is now in your domain, not just your academic advancement or development, but also your social development. So they have a designated area where they study. And that's an area in which it's free of distractions. That's not an area where you're going to hoover or create your protein shake, because it's going to distract the kid. Okay, so the other thing I do, and I teach parents to do this, is I love it. It's called a circle. We get up in the morning, we have a circle after we're dressed, and that includes me, by the way. I'm out of my lounge gear. We're all going to work. We talk about what are my goals for today? And we go around the table, we all talk about goals. What are my goals? When can you expect me to be available for you when I do not need to be interrupted? And what goals do you have for yourself today? I like the idea of empowering a child. A child needs to know, hey, I'm in charge of this too. I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. This is my input. And I love using a temperature gauge. You know, now with the pandemic, in Canada at least, we all have to check our temperature. Well, I teach people to do an emotional temperature gauge. Go around the table. What are you feeling right now? Well, bored. I'm tired. I really don't want to go to school. Whatever it is. Oh, why do I have to get up so early? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's deal with them for heaven's sakes, and then let's get on with the program. So it's very important to acknowledge where the child is at and do something with it. You talk about time management, I call it mind management. And think about emotions, just like we're dressed today. I'm in what I call my monkey suit today, and I'm dressed for the occasion. What is my final accessory going to look like? And that's something I teach kids to do. What are you going to wear? Oh, what emotion do I want? And that's a very difficult concept, even for adults to learn. What is the emotion I pick? Well, I'm going to pick curiosity. I love curiosity because, you know, it expands. In a confined environment, we can expand through our imagination, through fantasy. I'm curious. I'm going to pick alert. I'm going to pick excited. Really?
I love that. I love that. You know, two things that you said that really kind of shout out at me is, you know, first of all, you know, parent really leads the emotional journey of the home for each day. And so, you know, it's that old, you know, put on the oxygen mask on yourself before you help anybody else idea of making sure that you're centered and that you're calm with all of these things and that your children will take from you. I think, you know, that's a very important point. And also what you said about taking the time in the morning to just connect and just, you know, even if it's at the breakfast table, just to connect and say, where are we today? How are you feeling today? And where do we want to be today? I think those ideas are so powerful. Thank you for that.
Another thing I wanted to add, Elizabeth, if I might, is the importance of physical activity. During online learning, you've got to get up, give kids frequent breaks, get up, get some movement in place, please.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. Get outside, put on some music, get those kids moving. Fantastic. They do that in school. We have to make sure we're doing that at home. It's a really important point. I'm going to jump back over to about in school, and I'm going to jump over to Mr. Budhai. You know, children talking about moving, children are moving in and out of school because of quarantines and things like that. So how have the schools been able to support that in and out? And, you know, do you think that this works well in avoiding absences, or do you think it's confusing? What are your thoughts on that, and how have you dealt with those challenges?
So that's why we share experiences with other experts. And I would say that Dr. Nihal touched on some things that really are absent of my mind management. And I love that term. And I'm going to be using that very, very soon with everyone. I think that this type of mindfulness, to understand that there is going to be a period of adjustment for us all, and that we can't rush to become expert at anything, because we have to really give time to learn, share, practice, and experience what we've never experienced before. And I think that the shift to remote learning, the shift to virtual learning during a time like this has taken some time for people to adjust to, right? Our students know that traditional classrooms, and nothing replaces the human contact of a person with a child or the interaction that you have in person. But this type of interaction has actually shifted us as well. So we are actually interacting with a face, with a, like Dr. Nihal said, with emotion. You can actually see my face and feel what I'm feeling. And I think that that has lent itself to being prepared to when we have to go remote. So for instance, today, we had one of our schools that I had to shift to remote learning based on a COVID case. And our students and our staff immediately know exactly what to do. They know that the students sign into their virtual classrooms. They can actually see their peers, see their teachers, and have a very productive day as if they were inside the building as well. That takes time. And I think that we're at a time now where our students, based on how their brain works and how they are configured, they are adjusting a little faster than us adults. But at the same time, our teachers are really finding this phenomenal way of interacting with children in such a different way. And what's most importantly is that our families are more interacting with instruction and curriculum and with our schools more than ever before. They actually can see content and instruction and curriculum live while their children are actually being taught. In the past, we had to actually come into class, into school, and really participate in that fashion. Now, it is amazing how much parents are engaged in this process. And this disruption that occurred has actually made more of an engagement shift for us than anything else before. So I'm very proud of our students, proud of children in general, and proud of a professional staff that knows how to adjust through pandemics and through ever-changing things that happen in education.
Right. Really, it's been amazing. I think it's also increased student engagement. I know if I try to go in my kids' rooms when they're on remote, they're like, "Ow, I am in school." So their commitment is certainly there too. Tom, so in keeping things moving smoothly, can you share what are the benefits of the help desk to schools, to teachers, to students? Other than obvious, helping me out when I'm clueless what to do.
Yeah, so Elizabeth, I think, first and foremost is that it allows the teachers and the students to focus on instruction, right? So they're not focusing on resolving technical issues, they're focusing on what's core to their day, which is instruction. But it also sort of repositions technology as an obstacle to those shifts, right? When we're going from in-person to remote learning, the technology should not be an obstacle. It should be more of a force multiplier, right? So there are all kinds of wonderful things that you can do in these remote virtual classrooms. Things like breakout sessions and polling, and there's a very, very rich feature set, and we help to enable that so that the educators can really get the most out of those tools.
So you really expand their ability to teach by not only dealing with problems, but also thinking forward to be able to give them new solutions, new ways to engage with their students.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, that's terrific. David, you touched upon this a little bit before, but can you share a little bit more about some of the successes you've seen with students with this new technology? Obviously, the SWAT team, I'm super impressed with that. But what other successes have you seen?
Just to touch upon Mr. Budhai stated earlier, our greatest success has been having students attending school in person on a daily basis to truly support the whole child. We know that was turned upside down with our new educational normal. I saw something in the chat room. Do we believe that this will be extended into the future? I think that in school will occur, hopefully sooner than later, but based on this different modalities of synchronous and asynchronous instruction, we will see different modalities. But I think the traditional school will come back, but with different variables to that. With this being said, students have truly become 21st century learners. And as Elizabeth, you said before, prior to this, I would go into the cafeteria and say with my iPhone and tell a student, help me with this. How do I do this? Students teaching their own principle, which they would get a kick out of, but it's true. Our children have grown up with technology. So in terms of where they started and going, I think they're quicker to pick up on it. But they have been pushing to this 21st century learning based on new moment schools now more than ever. Students working in groups outside of classroom instruction to support one another in virtual study groups has definitely been on the rise. Not only in our school, even my own children. This will replicate some of the conditions of what our students will need to be successful on the college level. Some of the practices they're putting in place now, and I'm speaking from a high school perspective, doesn't mean this can't be done in different levels of education, will definitely serve them well as they go into post-secondary education. Self-advocacy. I speak to a number of students and just talk about, have you spoken to your teacher? Have you spoken to a social emotional expert? And really taking time for self-advocacy. As a parent, and I'm speaking to parents as well, I would promote this, that sometimes don't be the first one to contact. Start to teach your students how to advocate for themselves, because think of the life's lesson for it. This time more than ever, students should be emailing a teacher, attending extra help sessions, simply asking a question, verbally or in a virtual chat room, reaching out to counselors, administrators, just because that's going to be their way of life. And I think the college and the workforce, they're going to have to learn how to be an advocate for themselves as well. What better time than now?
Absolutely. That's really critical. But, sometimes we butt into the problem of children losing motivation. And so, Dr. Neehall, parents have seen a drop in motivation, as much as some children have really thrived, others have had a hard time. Sometimes it's hard to get out of your pajama pants. So what would be the top 2 tips that you would give parents to help motivate their child around online learning?
That's a very good question. One of the things that comes up for me is at the end of a day, I ask parents to ask the student, what went well for you today and why? That's such a powerful question because it throws the responsibility back on the laps of the student. I like that. The other thing I talk about is dopamine. When we get a positive bit of reinforcement, we get dopamine, we feel good. Now, wouldn't it be nice if the student can get an injection of dopamine ever so often? So the way I teach people to do it is it's so simple. Talk about 5 things that you really appreciated or liked about your kid today, what he or she did today. And I want 5, okay? It could be, I appreciate the fact that you ate breakfast under duress. I don't care what it is, but you come up with 5, okay? And then through the back door, you sneak in. And I'm wondering if we can tweak this just a little bit. And that's how you get into the negative, okay? And in that way, number 1, you get the cycle of dopamine. And number 2, the kid feels good because he or she feels intrinsic motivation. They feel on the inside, I did well, I want to do more. The extrinsic motivation is, well, did I get the grade? Did I get A+? Did I get 90? But that's not the important thing. What we want to teach them is the power of the intrinsic motivation, because that's where the research is heading. Our studies show that that is powerful. Even in the workforce, for all of us today, what's more important for us, intrinsic or extrinsic? I would say for myself, intrinsic. Just feeling good. So that's something I would want to do. I would also want to encourage people to go into the growth mindset, motivating kids to know it's difficult. And that's okay. Don't let's sugarcoat it. There's some subjects I will absolutely hate because the teacher said I didn't do well at that. Well, really? Let's prove that you can do it. I like the I can model. And what are my choices in here? So I don't want to do math now, I'll do reading, but I hate reading too. Okay, do you like soccer? Okay, can we get a book on soccer that's got graphics? And then, I don't believe it, you actually read with me? That's pretty neat. So those are some of the ways I go through getting someone to be motivated. And of course, it depends on the age of the child. If it's a little one at home, you can say, what's your goal today? Well, my goal today is to stay in my workstation. And you know, 2 reminders and you're out. So you reminded the child twice, whoops, you didn't, that's your 3rd reminder. More success. Good luck tomorrow. Let's try it again. So they're a little kid, that's how you do it with them. With adults or with tweens or say university kids, what do we do with them? Tell them to get rid of technoference. Tell them to get rid of multitasking because retention will be lower then. So
I love that idea of setting goals, having the children set goals, because there's such a, I don't know if that, you tell me, doctor, is that something that happens with dopamine come when you set a goal and you reach it? But because I know that I feel really good if I set a goal for myself and I reach it every day. And that's such a simple thing to be able to have for each of your children, to set a goal for them. And that, probably would work for teachers too, just a small goal. And the other thing that you brought up that I think is so important is, really filling them up with the positive before even addressing the negative, and allowing them to feel successful.
and pinning up their artwork or things that you feel proud. You know, you took such a great spin on that story. I wouldn't have done it that way. Tell me more. Show that you're really proud over what they're doing.
I love it. Really being conscious of how we're talking to our children. So important. Thank you. Mr. Budhai, what do you think? I wanted to get from you some as we're coming to a close soon. 3 learnings you think have been gained since the onset of online teaching?
Oh, there are so many learnings from this, but
I
try
know.
to keep it to 3 as much as I can.
Hard.
So I think that the first major part of the learning process in this endeavor was the collaboration and unity that any organization or our field had to have to be able to come to common ground on how we're going to proceed. So having, again, all stakeholders engaged in the process of creating a plan of action to address the needs of students, the needs of our staff, the needs of the community, was one of the things that we found very rewarding throughout this experience. So collaboration definitely was one. One thing that came to fruition while we were discussing all these matters was the word equity, and being mindful that there are students and communities that may have more than others, and to make sure that we provide for our children all the tools and essential tools necessary for them to become successful. So as Mr. Zimbler said, technology was an essential item for students to be able to really learn, have intrinsic motivation, and hear from others about what are next steps to move forward. But besides just having the actual tool and having Wi-Fi access, it was actually talking about how to use this tool to really integrate into an instructional environment. Simultaneous teaching and learning was a learning point for us. Knowing how to navigate having students in person at the same time, students remotely, and being able to engage both types of students at the same time, giving students autonomy to be able to learn independently, as you said, create their own goals, their power goals, so that they can feel success once they've met their goal, was something. And then one thing that I think was very clear to us is that self-care and being mindful of taking care of us is the best way to be able to support others. And so we've done a lot of great work in the area of self-care and making sure that we learn how to meditate. I've learned a great deal from others on how to breathe properly, be able to stand and walk, and listen to people like Dr. Nihal and getting some tips on how to self-care for myself so that I can really be the best that I can to serve my leadership team, to serve our children, our community. So those are the 3 most powerful things that I think I've learned from this experience, and always keeping around me the smartest people that I can find. Because if I am the smartest person in the room, I am in the wrong room. So those things are the things that I've learned.
I love it. I love it. And it's so, really it comes down so much to psychology and to, that self-care, and obviously we're very happy that Tom is around to take care of the technology so we can do the self-care. Tom, can you give us a couple of tips for parents to help make distance learning a little bit less stressful? I mean, obviously, if they have in their district your help desk, that would be number 1. But can you give us a couple of ideas?
Sure. So I love what David was talking about, the idea that students are becoming more self-sufficient and independent during this. So we have 3 modes that we can be contacted through for support. One is an 800 number, one is a chat portal, and the other is email. So if you think about those 3 modes, you can probably guess who uses what, right? So 90% of our incoming volume is from parents, and they call. It's the students that use the chat platform mostly. And those, for me, I think are the most impressive. It's the students who are, most vested in their own development, that they're willing to get on a chat and try to solve an issue. So if if it was my student, my child, I would try to encourage them more to be more of an advocate for themselves and try to resolve those issues. And it's not that we don't welcome the calls from the parents, we certainly do, but it's great to see the students developing, sort of that independence. My other tip would be to make sure they try to log in early, get connected early, make sure that their Wi-Fi is working, that they can check their video, their audio in both directions, before the start of the class. And then just, sort of making sure they can minimize distractions in the background. If they have siblings who are also remote learning, trying to find separate, places where they're not competing. And just really, staying disciplined and trying to treat it like a classroom as much as they can.
Those are some terrific tips, really terrific tips. I could talk all day with all of you. This is so important information and been so valuable, but we do have some questions from our attendees that I would really love to get to. The first question I have is, how do you get your school district to have the help desk?
It would really be, I think, a school by school. So I'm going to relieve the superintendent of this one because it's really the culture you produce in your own building. In terms of this aspect, every school has a librarian. The title librarian is a library media specialist. Contact your principal of your respective school and just say you were in a webinar and you heard about a library media specialist at a local high school who has a help desk where they can be emailed via Remind. Remind's the big platform. Remind's very easy. You get a Remind account and you literally, it's like a text with a phone desk number. So there's always different variables, similar to what Tom said, but on a school level, that if you're having trouble getting to Google or just simply saying, is there something wrong with Google Classroom today? Listen, we've had a day or two in which we walk into the building and technology, if it's not working, the sky is falling. So to make sure you have someone you can contact, and that was the help desk. Immediately, even though we sent out messages, but really just reach out to your own local schools and talk about what you heard today and how can you create this. And in that particular school, it's through the library media specialist because that's where her skill set is. It may be in your particular school, the skill set someplace else. But again, we talk about student advocation. We talk parent advocation all the time. We want our parents to keep emailing, keep calling, keep at us. Because as Mr. Budhai said, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. We have a lot of people in the community. We've actually reached out for volunteers. In terms of a dialogue with a parent, realizing the background knowledge of a parent, and then getting somewhere where the parents are volunteering to support our students. This great, a greater reach, because we are truly a community, and how we working together is most important to create a culture such as that. But definitely reach out to your schools.
To really advocate, like we're saying, for the
parent advocate. Why is that school having and we don't?
Right.
I know I've gone to Mr. Budhai in the years we've worked together and said, I was here, or I read this, or I saw that, and he's done the same to me. But that's where the brainstorming starts. How do you replicate a condition that you feel sound for your students and your parents and create your own and even bigger and better?
Terrific.
Yep.
What I did was I put, sorry, Tom, I'll jump right to you. I just want to let people know that I put Tom's contact information and custom computer specialist website in the chat, so that if you want to share that with your school district, you can go right ahead and give them that information, make it easier. Tom, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to echo what David said. Really, you have to go to your school, your administrators. It has to be procured through either the school on a school or district basis. You can't just do it, as a private parent saying, I want to sign my child up. It's got to be on a school or district basis.
So parents can't just reach out to you and say, help. They have to actually go through the school, have the school.
They can, and I'll take that call. Yeah, but I'll redirect them. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. So a parent was saying that, for those kids who struggle with executive function skills, they still need to be taught time management. So how can we make sure that children are taught time management so they're not left floundering? And how can they be taught time management? I mean,
I'll jump in and use what Dr. Nihal said. I loved listening to you this morning, Dr. Nihal, and talking about that family circle. The night before or the morning of, speaking about what's the agenda for the day. And what's our goal to achieve for the day? Every day is a new adventure. Every day is not a great day. But how do we, navigate through those waters is by being proactive, really talking about what's my day going to look like and how am I going to achieve, and focusing on that. And there's going to be some listen, as parents, and only as high school principal, I'm a high school dad and an elementary school dad. So I see from all different levels, and some conversations such as now may not be the best conversations. That's our current reality. As Dr. Nihal said, you walk away and you come back. As the parents, we create the culture in our homes. And knowing that time management is crucial right now.
Yeah.
And how do we help our children with that?
Terrific.
I think I might add to David's point. I think what's important as well is to give the child frequent breaks. When you get frequent breaks and then they go and do something physical, when they come back, they're more enthused, they've got more energy. Okay, and we need to be aware of that, especially you, Tom, with the work you do, because they're really focused on a computer. It's good to get them off and walking. Don't get them on their iPhones or whatever. That's just more media. Out you go. I like that.
I love that. I know with my children, what's been very helpful is every morning I actually put their names up on the board and I time, like, this is what time you're going to school, this is what time you're coming home, this is what time. And, because I think sometimes, children can feel so out of control because they don't necessarily, I have an elementary schooler and a middle schooler, but not knowing what your day is. I mean, if I didn't have this telling me my phone, exactly what to expect during the day, I would feel lost. So sometimes even just having that for the children to see each morning, I find in my household has been really helpful.
I think also getting children to, and also us as adults, doing one thing a day that we enjoy. We are in uncertain times. There is prolonged grief. Let's just focus on one thing that we want to do that we enjoy.
I love that.
Ms. Alonia, if I could say, we as parents, right, individual parents think that that's something that comes innate as a parent. That's not just normal. That also has to be taught. So we have to engage our families in providing some sessions on how to structure your day, how to structure your life, how to best communicate with the children on a daily basis, because we all know that as parents, that is a difficult task. And I have 3 that are pretty much grown. All 3 are out of my house. But I have to connect with them to just make sure that they're doing well, right? As adults. So
Right.
Picture when you have them in your homes as young as you can, that structure is not something that we have to take into account, that probably some of our parents may need help in how to do that as well. So providing sessions on how to do that in your home is also going to be as critical. We can't just think that because you're a parent, you know exactly what to do in your house or how to structure for a time like this in particular as a pandemic.
Absolutely. Support is critical. Dr. Nihal?
Yeah, I was going to say that what's important now is to model self-compassion. To link to Mr. Budhai's point, I think it's very important that we realize that we need to be transparent, that productivity is not synonymous with thriving during these uncertain times. So dumb down some of your expectations, please, and be aware as well that we have limits as parents, as adults, and children have their limits as well. I mean, their prefrontal cortex is still in the process of developing, so we can be patient with them. But by the same token, I think it's important for us to stop apologizing, to not feel shame and guilt because we have to say, no, these are my boundaries for today.
I'll compliment that into transparency. Last night, working with my 4th grader, there was a math example Daddy did not know. And showing your children you're vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
And I said, Eli, this one's got me. This one has Dad. Let's email your teacher together. And he looked at me, but modeling that, I think, is so healthy in a household that we all don't have the answers. We're all vulnerable. And try and promote what I said before about advocacy. We spoke about it, and I said, Eli's a 4th grader. You email your teacher. We created a little message, and he went on the computer and emailed it. At first, you think he wanted to email his teacher? No, but we spoke about the why. Why is it important? And just taking that moment to show my vulnerability, but also allowing him to be an advocate for himself. And then the goal today is for him to teach his dad that example.
Yes. Wow. That's really it's like you hit it out of the park. You hit all the keynotes, right? You know, making sure they're taking accountability, being able to show your own vulnerability, being able to empathize with how they're feeling. You know, all these things are so critical in being able to have the student be successful and feel successful. Let's see, I think we have some more questions. I know that we're coming to the end. I do want, Dr. Neehall, can you share the name of your book again, please?
Oh, yes. The book is right here, actually.
Good, please show it.
Is the New Healthy. And what I'm saying is that if you're happy, it boosts your immune system, it increases longevity, and you will have better interpersonal relationships and intrapersonal relationships. You just have more energy, you know? I tell people, describe in 5 ways. I don't know why I'm stuck on 5 today. Describe in 5 ways how your life is a happy life. Now, you know, that's psychologically priming a person to think in terms of, oh, my life is happy versus what I don't have. And I also teach them that 10% of your happiness, just 10% is due to extraneous events.
It's like the focus too. You're helping your child focus on what's happy, right? Because I always say to my kids, I'm like, you focus on that, that's all you're going to see. But if you can get your child to focus on what's happy in their life, you know, I even think like maybe make it a treasure hunt in the morning and say, okay, we're going to dinner. We're going to talk about the 5 happy things in your life. Look for them today. You know, and it's almost sets children up to kind of look for it. You know, you talk about gratitude too, and I wish we had more time. I wish we had more time. And this has been really phenomenal. I want to thank each and every one of you. Everything that you've said has been so valuable, and I hope that our attendees have gotten. I'm getting a lot of thank yous from the attendees. I do want to repeat again that this has been recorded, and it will be available on the Schneps Media YouTube channel within 48 hours. So you'll be able to see it again. You'll be able to share it with others. And I want to just go around. Thank you so much, Tom from Custom Computer Specialist. Thank you to Custom Computer Specialist for sponsoring this incredible webinar. Thank you, Dr. Neehall. Wonderful to have you here. Such incredible insights. David Zimbler, as a parent, as a teacher, as a principal, with all of your expertise, really thank you so much. And Mr. Budhai, really honored to have you here and be able to give us the whole overview of what has happened in schools. And honestly, our teachers, our principals, our superintendents have really been heroes in this pandemic, being able to move fast and make changes and support our children. So thank you to all of you. Thank you so much to our attendees for joining us this morning. Wonderful to have you with us. Hope that you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you on an upcoming webinar. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.